What's up, guys? Chris Schwartz-Edmisten here from Schwartz-Edmisten Web Design. In today's video, I'm chatting with Will Myers from willmyers.com. He sells Squarespace plugins and does coding customization for Squarespace, very similar to what I do. So it was really fun to chat with somebody who's, in the same sphere as I am. And in today's video, we're discussing writing JavaScript with AI, specifically how beginners can get started doing it. It's a really great conversation, and Will is a super cool guy, so I'm excited to share today's video with you. Thank you so much for joining me. We had a CSS conversation on your channel where we talked about attribute selectors. So now on my channel, we're going to be talking about writing JavaScript with AI today.
Yes. And just generally, I mean, there's a lot that goes into it. That's like a massive topic. But specifically, how have I been writing JavaScript using AI to write JavaScript within the context of CSS or within the context of Squarespace, and also CSS as well? Not everyone might not need JavaScript, but CSS is helpful as well. And this is something I've been doing for a while. I'd be curious before we jump into it, like, what is for you? Have you been using AI much when writing code?
Yeah, not so much for CSS, just because I feel like I have a nice mastery of CSS where I can do it faster on my own. But with JavaScript, it can spit out JavaScript so fast that I know JavaScript well enough to be able to instruct it well, but it can just write much faster than I ever could. So I find it super helpful in that way.
So that's honestly the biggest use case. Like, I still need to know what the code's doing, but it just like writes it so quickly, and typically in like a structure that's like, oh, I hadn't even thought about writing it in that way. That's actually a really elegant way to do it. So that's exciting. So what I wanted to go over today is first just kind of a more basic using AI to write some CSS and help us to style some things with CSS. And then once we do that, we'll jump into the deep end and we'll do something totally untested and try and build a second call to action button in our header using AI.
I love it.
We'll see if that works. All right. So can I share my screen? Are we good to do that?
Yeah, go for it.
There we go. Okay. So this is the prompt I'm gonna give AI, but before I put it in, let's talk about which ones there are. There's Claude. That's what I'll be using today. But I know a lot of people use ChatGPT. It's an excellent one. I have a subscription to it. And if I'm building like a plugin or something, I'm using Cursor, which is just like a fork of VS Code. But I wouldn't recommend that for just like just trying to whip up some CSS or some JavaScript for a custom project. But those are the three big ones: Cursor, Claude, and ChatGPT. Have you used any or all of those?
No, I signed up for a subscription when ChatGPT first came out, and so I've just kind of been using it ever since.
It's excellent. I've been using Claude since about 3 or 4 months ago. Been very helpful. I find it really helpful with code. It's just a little bit better, I've found, with code. But I know ChatGPT has updated a lot recently, so ChatGPT might be good. But Claude is also great there's some other things. If you sign up, this isn't part of the free subscription, but if you sign up, there's an area called projects, and you can start project right here. So let's say this is one I was just testing around, my tabs plugin. I've put in all my code for the tabs plugin. You can put in whatever you want, just a bunch of different files and stuff. And then you can ask it questions and it'll reference those files. So it's a really helpful little way to improve the code, because that's kind of the big problem with all of these things. ChatGPT, Claude, any of these. Let's go to what the main big problem is. Let's say this is our prompt right here. We want to style just some basic CSS behind our accordion block. As we hover over an accordion button like this, we want the background color to change, right? And when it's open, we want the whole thing to be a different color, right? So here's my prompt. Let's just drop that into Claude. And this is the problem with most of our, struggling here. This is the problem with any of these AIs. It doesn't have the context. It's going to very confidently tell you something that's very wrong. And I don't know, does ChatGPT do this now? Like, Claude does this, they call them artifacts over here on the side, which is another reason I like it. It just sort of prints it out. It's a lot easier to read. And as you make changes and stuff, it'll update over here. It's really nice. But
That's cool.
so here's our prompt, right? We wanted it to change some code. It's written us some CSS very, very confidently here. Let's hit copy on that. Go to our website, and none of this is going to work. It doesn't work because it doesn't know the context of what are the right selectors. It's just making up selector names here. So none of that works. And this is going to be a problem with any one that you use. So what I have found to be helpful is to just provide this context. You don't need to structure it. You don't need to make it look nice or anything. Let's just start a new chat. I'm going to paste in that same prompt right here. Let's just copy it. Copy that. I'm going to paste in that same prompt. We're going to go back to our website, and let's right click on go into our web inspector. Let's find, I'm going to give it the HTML for this block, this one specific block. So I'm going to just move up in our HTML until I'm hovered over the full thing. It's highlighted over here, but I want to go up to the block level element. So I'm looking for a class that starts with SQS block. And so that's right here. So right click on this, copy element. And that's going to copy the entire HTML that's in here. And then within here, let's just add a couple more lines, and I'm just going to paste it. And so it's going to paste it in down here, but this is the HTML. You can pull it up here. It's just a bunch of crazy. Don't need to do anything else. Now I'm going to ask it that question. I've given it the context. And again, this is all very dangerous doing this on the fly, but here we go. Now I know this because I've sleuthed through all, and you know this too. These selectors are much more appropriate. These are the ones that Squarespace uses. So let's copy that. Let's just, fingers crossed, hope this works. And there we go. So now it's starting to work. So now we're starting to get a little bit of a structure of what we want it to do. And so that's the big thing with any of these LLMs. I know someone asked me a question, and like, would it be appropriate to build a GPT? Like, you can, in Chat GPT, you can build your own little mini GPTs, kind of like a project in here, in Claude. And I've started with the Squarespace selectors. Maybe you can add all the Squarespace selectors into this project, and then you can ask it questions, and you don't have to add that additional context. That could be helpful. That'll just take a lot of time, like putting all that together. And it's a very overkill because you can just right click, copy the element, and move it over. So this is a great way to just, again, give you starting points. It's going to write out a lot of the code. It gives you a lot of comments, so you don't necessarily need all of these comments and stuff. And obviously this doesn't look good, so you'd want to ask it some additional questions and stuff. But this is just a great starting point for figuring out some code, using AI to use some CSS, giving it that a little bit of additional context.
So it sounds like the context is the key there. Otherwise, it's just going to make up what it thinks its idea of what you want is, but it needs the context in order for it to work.
Correct. And you're going to get into this like really endless loop where you can like ask it questions. Let's go. Was this the original one? You can ask it questions. Yeah, this is wrong. You can continue to ask it questions like, hey, this isn't working. What should I do? And again, it's just going to very confidently, oh, I'm very sorry. So now here's some other things to do. And you're just going to get into this endless loop where see, it's just like, it's like making up other selectors. It's just going to totally make stuff up. So you got to be able to give it the context for it to work. And like you said, I think that was the right little phrase. Context is key.
Awesome.
Okay. So are we ready? Let's try. This is totally from scratch. Let's just see if we can do this a little advanced, because that was CSS, right? Now let's go a little bit more advanced and see if we can add a little call to action button, additional call to action button. So I'm going to change the layout here. We'll use this and let's toggle on our add an element button. So let's say we want to add, what do we want it to be? A phone number, maybe a phone number up here.
Sure. Yeah, that's great.
So, okay, so let's just follow my instructions here. What did I just say to do? So I'm gonna give it the let's start with the prompt actually. And when I'm writing prompts, the more specific you can be, as specific and clear and descriptive, the better. So
Hmm.
I want to add an additional call to action button in my main navigation area.
Hmm.
Attached is the HTML for the header, my website. Can you write me some JavaScript and CSS that will accomplish this? I want the button to sit next to the current call to action button. I want here, and this now we'll just like add some bullet points. So what are the things that I want? The button to sit next to the current call to action button.
Do we
The
have to specify whether it should be on the left or the right, do you think?
That's a great idea. So let's say sit to the right of the current call to action button. The button should have a phone number as the href, and the button text should say, call me. And now let's just go to our header, open up our web inspector. I'm just going to find the header. I'm going to hit copy element and let's just drop it in. Now it's going to
And
think for a half second.
how could someone know that they were on the header element? Is there like any advice you could
Great.
give for selecting the header?
So whenever I'm trying to find the right element, for blocks, you want to look for that class of SQS block. So find something in here, find anything in the HTML that's within the element you're trying to target, and then just move up in our HTML until you find, if you're looking for a block, you find SQS block. That's what you look for. And if
Mhm.
you're in the header, same thing. Let's just go here. What you're looking for here is a header, something that says header right here. So I'm just going to do that same thing. I'm going to scroll up. The header has so many attributes in it, but here's our header. And so that's what I just right clicked and copied for our
Okay,
header.
sweet.
So that's how I moved up there. Okay, so here is everything. So this is what it's done is given me just JavaScript right here and just some CSS right here. But I can already see it hasn't wrapped our JavaScript in script tags. So we're going to need to do some editing here.
Mhm.
But let's just copy this. And this is going to need to go in our site footer code injection area. Let's see if it tells us to do that. Directly within a script tag of your HTML file. So it does give you some pretty good instructions here. Add the CSS code. So it does break it down. So it hasn't given us two separate files, but it says put this within a script tag.
Mhm.
Hit copy on that. Back to our website. So we could add a code block in here, but I think it's probably better to just go to our code injection and throw it down here in the footer.
Mhm.
Remove this. Going to add a script tag. Then let's paste that.
And it
And
looks
let's
like you
just
need a forward slash on the first comment.
good point. I missed that. I missed that copy. Let's just hit save and see what happens. Look at that. It's
Hey,
just already up there already.
wow.
It's duplicated everything. So with that additional context, it worked. I didn't even need to. So this is really interesting. I had no idea that it was going to do this. I thought we'd at least need to put in the CSS here. But it looks like what it did was it added the same classes as the current call to action button right here. So let's look at that JavaScript. So it's looking for the header actions. That's the correct selector right there. We're creating the new button with call me, and we're giving it. So these class names right here are the exact class names of our contact me button. So because I gave it the right context, See right here, btn, btn dash dash border, theme dash button dash dash primary inverse. That's the exact class names that the AI knew, because it was like, okay, well, it's probably going to be similar. So I'm just going to copy that. This is the call me. I told it to do that. And then it just created another wrapper that was an exact replica here. So it just duplicated what was there, which is pretty awesome. I'm not gonna lie. So before we go too much further, like what questions do you have here? Because there's some more dialing in we could do.
Yeah, this was amazing that it even got us this close. But
Right.
are there any optimizations that you notice in what it spit out? Just knowing JavaScript yourself, like what optimizations would you say it could improve on that you would change here?
So once I've gotten something like this, what I would like to do, because I'm usually like wanting to hand this off to a client or build this into a reusable component. So what I'll do is sort of float up any of these variables or turn anything into variables to make it easier on future me. So let's say we'll say const button text is going to be call me. So I'm going to move that right here. And then I'm just going to put button text as the variable down there. And then our const phone number, we'll create a new variable, and that's going to be this right here. We'll use strings, and then we'll change this into like a template literal right there. And then using our $sign and then squiggly, we can put in phone number. So it'll concact these two strings together.
Cool.
But everything else, I mean, these comments are pretty good. Oftentimes I don't like to leave functions like this. If it's sitting right here, it's going to sit right on the window itself. So someone else, you might accidentally, very rarely, but this is just a check thing. Someone else could create some variable add CTA button, and then this could break because it doesn't know like which variable to take. So I'll wrap this in what's called an ify statement function like this. And this way, any of your variable names aren't going to be exposed to can't be broken. So I'll just wrap it all in that. But these are all just very minor little tweaks to what this code is. I mean, this is all pretty good right out the gate, honestly. The other thing you would also want to do is on mobile, because it hasn't added it into mobile. So let's see. I'm going to push my luck here. How can we add this same button to our mobile menu? To our mobile menu. And we'll see if this works. And he's added some I called it he. It's weird how we anthropomorphize these things. It has added some additional classes and stuff. If we wanted to style that, it looked like, let's see, call me BTN. So we can target call me BTN and change some specific styles around that.
That's pretty cool.
So now it's made this a good, so it's kind of done what I changed there. So phone number, button text, those exact things.
Oh yeah.
And it's now created two things. So let's just copy this and see if this works. We'll just drop this right back in here. There we go. And it's there. So now it's bada bing, bada boom. Yeah. Like
Super
using
cool.
AI. And again, it's so this is amazing. Honestly, this wrote this code so fast. I was even explaining it. This video is longer than it would take if you're just doing this on your own.
Yeah.
Very fast. You can very easily get into create a headache for yourself if you don't take a moment and read the code. Be like, what is this doing? If you do not know, someone should absolutely know what this code is doing. And that should be you as the designer, as the developer. You should know what the code is doing, because future you is going to want to make a change. Something is going to break and computers can't be held accountable. Like you should be the one that's able to be held accountable. So go
Totally.
through and just kind of look through what all these things are doing. So if there's a mobile nav, we're creating I'm not going to walk through all this code right now.
Hmm.
But I would highly suggest taking a moment and reading through this code to try and understand what we're doing. So we're starting with here once it loads, then we're running our add CTA function. We have a couple functions here. We're creating that. If there's a desktop container, we're going to build that. Here's our mobile CTA. If there's a mobile CTA, we're going to build that. So generally, that's kind of what's going on. That makes sense. I'd read through it a little bit more, but this is
And
it.
if you didn't understand something in the code, you could also ask Claude also like, hey, I don't understand
Yes.
what this function is doing. Can you break that down for me? And it
Totally.
should explain it.
It absolutely would. So this is kind of a long one. This one's like, wait, what's happening here? So let's just copy that. This is great. I always like to be nice to our robot overlords. So be nice.
I love
This is
that.
great. What can you explain this line for me? And then paste it in. I do this often. I'm like, wow, this is really good. I don't really understand what's happening here. Like, sort of break this down for me. And it'll give you a very excellent, detailed sort of breakdown what we're doing.
Hmm.
And just how to recreate it or how to play around with it and understanding all the different like the methods and all the other stuff associated with it.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's a great call.
I like learning by doing, I feel like is the best way to learn something. And like
Absolutely.
this is like an unbelievable teacher that you can just ask any question that you have and it'll step by step come out with the answer for you. So
It's
amazing.
an amazing teacher. I like I think like yourself, you're a self-taught coder, right?
I
You
am.
sort of you just learned yeah, I'm the same way.
Hmm.
And just a lot of YouTube videos.
Hmm.
And that was years ago. We're just such old farts now. But that is how I learned through these YouTube videos, but it was hard finding the YouTube videos because it kind of needed to get close enough to what you were wanting to build. It's like
Hmm.
this is the idea I have in my head. I need to watch a YouTube video that's close enough and then I'll be able to extrapolate what to do.
Hmm.
And this is like a perfect trainer. Like it tells you exactly what it is that you're trying to build and breaks down the steps. And can't create YouTube videos yet, thankfully for us. But it is so yeah, exactly. But it is so helpful. If you have the motivation and the desire to be learning some of this stuff.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so
Um,
much for walking us through it. That was great.
yeah, absolutely. This has been a pleasure. Thank you for having me on, man.
All right, that's it for this video. Hopefully you took away some good information about getting started writing JavaScript with AI. And I want to reiterate two things that we talked about, and that's providing context to get the best results, and then also the fact that you still have to know JavaScript in order to do this, because you have to know when it has done something incorrectly or needs to be improved, and then you reprompt it to get better results. So, people talk about developers going away. I don't think that's the case at all. Just like a manager who's hiring an employee to do the work, like that manager still has to know how to do that job so they can instruct that person on what to do and correct errors if errors are made. So that's our job as, AI prompt engineers, essentially. You have to know JavaScript in order to know when it has done something incorrectly or needs to be optimized or improved. So developers are not going away. I think their roles are just going to be changing slightly, but that doesn't make knowing how to write JavaScript any less important. It's still mandatory in order to know how to prompt or make changes in the future. So definitely if you're early on your coding journey, like don't lose heart. You are absolutely heading in the right direction. Coding is just as important as it was, at any time in the past. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. I loved talking to Will. I think we're going to do more collaborations in the future because we both had a good time. And make sure you check out his YouTube channel and also his website, willmyers.com. He sells a bunch of awesome Squarespace plugins, so check out his stuff. And if you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing to the channel for more Squarespace customization content like this in the future. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one.